Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're diving into the most insane Dragon Ball concept. What if Goku never bumped his head as a kid? This is absolutely broken storytelling potential. Picture a 6-year-old Kakarot with full Saiyan memories, programmed for conquest, hunting for sport and claiming territories like a miniature warlord. But here's the epic twist: instead of losing that edge, he learns to channel Saiyan brutality into protection. That's not character development, that's psychological evolution. This 8-chapter masterpiece follows Kakarot's journey from cold warrior to Earth's protector while keeping that predatory edge. By Tournament of Power, this isn't just different backstory Goku, this is reimagined heroism as strategic conquest. Smash that like, subscribe, hit the bell, let's dive in. The morning mist clung to Mount Paozu like a shroud, but it couldn't muffle the sounds of violence echoing through the forest. Trees crashed in thunderous succession, their ancient trunks splintering like twigs as a small figure moved through them with predatory grace. 6-year-old Kakarot crouched over his latest kill, a massive bear that had made the mistake of wandering into his territory. His tail swished behind him as he examined the creature's wounds, cataloging which strikes had been most effective. The Saiyan child's dark eyes held none of the innocence one might expect. Instead, they burned with a cold intelligence that would have chilled any observer. "Kakarot," the voice of Grandpa Gohan rang out across the clearing. "What have I told you about hunting so close to the house?" The old man emerged from the tree line, his weathered face creased with concern and exhaustion. In the 3 years since finding the boy's crashed pod, Gohan had tried everything to temper the child's violent instincts: meditation, philosophy, even simple games. Nothing worked. If anything, Kakarot seemed to grow more calculating with each passing day. "The bear entered my domain," Kakarot replied without looking up, his young voice carrying an authority that made Gohan's heart sink. "I defended what is mine as father instructed." Gohan sighed. The boy still spoke of his father, this mysterious Bardock whose final message had somehow survived the pod's crash. "Conquer this planet, my son. Make the low-class warrior name proud." Those words had burned themselves into Kakarot's mind with the force of a dying star's last light. "Your father isn't here, child, I am. And I'm telling you, you are not my father." Kakarot's head snapped up, his gaze piercing. "You are Gohan, the hermit who found me. You gave me shelter and food, so I allow you to live in my territory. Do not mistake kindness for weakness." Before Gohan could respond, a tremendous crash echoed from the other side of the mountain. Both of them turned toward the sound, but Kakarot was already moving, his small form blurring with inhuman speed. Bulma briefs groaned as she pulled herself from the wreckage of her capsule car, dirt and leaves cascading from her blue hair. Her radar beeped insistently from somewhere in the debris. The Dragon Ball was close. Very close. "Stupid tree," she muttered, kicking at the twisted metal. "Dad's going to kill me if I've broken another." The words died in her throat as she sensed movement in the shadows. A small figure emerged from the forest, and for a moment Bulma felt relief. A child, maybe he could help her find the Dragon Ball. That relief evaporated when she saw his eyes. "You've entered my territory without permission," Kakarot said, his child's voice carrying a weight that made Bulma's skin crawl. "State your purpose or be removed." Bulma's scientific mind raced. The boy couldn't be more than 6 or 7, but the way he moved, the confidence in his stance, this wasn't normal. "I'm looking for something," she said carefully. "A orange ball about this big with stars on it." "Have you seen anything like that?" Kakarot's expression didn't change, but his tail swished once behind him. "The glowing sphere from the sky, yes, I possess it." "You possess it?" Bulma's voice cracked slightly. "Listen, kid, I really need that ball. It's for a wish, something very important." "Everything is important to those who desire it," Kakarot interrupted. "But importance does not create ownership. Strength does." He stepped closer, and Bulma could see the predatory grace in his movements. "You wish to take what is mine, therefore you are my enemy." The attack came faster than Bulma could process. One moment she was backing away, hands raised peacefully. The next, she was flying through the air, her body screaming in pain as she crashed into a boulder. Through blurred vision, she saw the boy approaching, no emotion on his face beyond cold calculation. "Wait," she gasped, struggling to her feet. "I have something you might want more than that ball." Kakarot paused, head tilted like a curious predator. Speak quickly. Bulma's mind raced through everything she knew about wish granting, about legends, about anything that might save her life. That ball you found, it's not the only one. There are 7 total, and when you gather them all, you can summon a dragon that will grant any wish. She watched his expression carefully. Any wish at all? For the first time, genuine interest flickered in the child's dark eyes. A dragon that grants any wish. That's right, I have a radar that can find the others. Bulma slowly reached for her device, showing him the blinking screen. But I need all 7 balls to make it work. Kakarot stared at the radar for a long moment, his young mind clearly working through possibilities. When he spoke again, there was something almost like respect in his voice. You would share this power with me? Why? Because I'm smart enough to know I can't take it from you by force, Bulma admitted, and because maybe we both get what we want this way. The Saiyan child nodded slowly. You are not a warrior, but you are not a fool. Very well, we will form an alliance. You will help me gather these dragon balls, and in return, I will allow you to make one wish. His eyes hardened. But understand this, woman, betray me, and your death will not be quick. Bulma suppressed a shudder as she nodded. She'd come to Mount Paozu looking for a simple wish. Instead, she'd found something far more dangerous, a child who spoke like a conqueror and moved like a killer. As they began their uneasy partnership, neither noticed the full moon beginning to rise behind the clouds, its light growing stronger with each passing hour. The real test of their alliance, and of whatever humanity might still exist in the Saiyan child's heart, was yet to come. Far above, Grandpa Gohan watched from a cliff face, his weathered hands clenched in worry. The girl seemed kind enough, but kindness had never been enough to reach the darkness in Kakarot's heart. Tonight, with the full moon rising, that darkness would have a chance to consume everything. Please, the old hermit whispered to the wind, let there be some light left in him yet. The morning after the full moon brought devastation to Mount Paozu. Bulma awakened to find herself somehow alive, sheltered beneath an overturned boulder that had shielded her from the carnage. Around her, the landscape was transformed, ancient trees uprooted, entire cliff faces shattered, the very geography reshaped by monstrous fury. In the center of it all lay Kakarot, naked and unconscious, his small form somehow innocent in sleep despite the destruction surrounding him. But Grandpa Gohan was nowhere to be found. 3 months later. Your student troubles me, Master Roshi, said Launch, her blue hair catching the afternoon breeze as she watched Kakarot demolish training equipment with mechanical precision. He's gotten stronger since that night on the mountain, but there's something hollow about it. Master Roshi adjusted his sunglasses, studying the 7-year-old who moved through combat forms with the discipline of a seasoned warrior. The boy had arrived at Kame House with Bulma, seeking training not for self-improvement but for what he called tactical advantage. Roshi had sensed the darkness immediately and the potential for something more. Hollow, yes, Roshi murmured, but not empty. There's pain beneath that cold exterior. Launch. The question is whether we can reach it before it consumes him entirely. Kakarot finished his kata and approached them, his expression unreadable. Master Roshi, I require increased training intensity. My current regimen is insufficient. Insufficient for what, boy? Roshi asked, though he suspected the answer. The World Martial Arts Tournament approaches. I will enter and claim victory. It is expected of my bloodline. Bulma, who had been tinkering with her latest invention nearby, looked up sharply. In the months since Mount Paozu, she'd grown to understand the boy's psychology better than anyone. The guilt over Gohan's death, which he refused to acknowledge directly, drove him to seek validation through conquest. You know, she said carefully, winning a tournament doesn't make you a good person, Kakarot. The child's dark eyes fixed on her with that familiar predatory intensity. I am not seeking to become good, woman. I seek to become strong. There is a difference. Is there? Roshi interjected, rising from his beach chair. Tell me, boy, what did your father's strength ultimately accomplish? For the first time in months, uncertainty flickered across Kakarot's features. He fought for our people's honor. And where is your people's honor now? Roshi pressed gently. Where is your planet, your father? Sometimes, Kakarot, the strongest thing a warrior can do is choose mercy over might. The boy's hands clenched into fists, his tail bristling behind him. You speak like the old man, like Gohan. His voice cracked almost imperceptibly on the name. Words are wind, Master. Only power is truth. The 22nd World Martial Arts Tournament drew competitors from across the globe, but none generated as much curiosity as the small boy with the monkey tail who registered under the name Kakarot. Tournament officials initially tried to bar him due to his age, until he demonstrated his qualifications by accidentally shattering the testing machine. In the preliminary rounds, Kakarot's opponents fell like wheat before the scythe. But his methods disturbed the crowd. There was no joy in his victories, no sportsmanship, only cold efficiency. He didn't fight to test himself or entertain others, he fought to dominate. His most significant match came in the semi-finals against Tyne Shinhan. The three-eyed warrior had heard rumors about this strange child, but seeing him in person was different. As they faced each other in the ring, Tyne felt an odd chill, not from the boy's power, which was considerable, but from the emptiness behind his eyes. "You fight like a machine," Tyne observed as they circled each other. "Where is your warrior spirit?" "Spirit is a luxury for those who can afford to lose," Kakarot replied, launching into an attack that forced Tyne onto the defensive immediately. The battle that followed was a masterclass in technique versus raw brutality. Tyne's Crane School training emphasized precision and tactical thinking, but Kakarot fought with an almost casual ruthlessness that slowly wore down his opponent's defenses. When Tyne attempted his signature Dodonrai, Kakarot didn't dodge, he walked straight through the beam, accepting the pain to land a devastating counter. "Impossible," Chairatsu gasped from the sidelines. "How can a child be so cold?" finished Master Shen, the Crane Hermit. His eyes narrowed as he studied the boy. "That's not human fighting instinct, that's something else entirely." The match ended when Kakarot caught Tyne's tri-beam attack barehanded, the energy crackling harmlessly around his small form before he redirected it skyward. Tyne collapsed, exhausted, while Kakarot stood untouched. "Victory," the boy announced to the silent crowd, his voice carrying no satisfaction. "As expected." But as he walked away, Master Roshi noticed something others missed. Kakarot's hands were trembling. Not from exhaustion or adrenaline, but from something deeper, something that looked almost like regret. The victory celebration was muted. Kakarot accepted his prize money with the same mechanical efficiency he brought to everything else, then promptly donated it to the tournament's maintenance fund, a gesture that surprised everyone, including himself. "Why did you do that?" Bulma asked as they sat on the beach outside Kame House that evening. Kakarot stared out at the waves, his reflection wavering in the water. "I do not know," it felt. Appropriate? For a moment, just a moment, he sounded like the lost child he truly was. "Gohan would have been proud," Bulma said softly. The boy's shoulders tensed, but he didn't lash out as she'd expected. Instead, his voice came out very small. "Would he, even after? Especially after?" Bulma moved closer, careful not to spook him. "You know what I think? I think he'd be proud that you're starting to choose for yourself instead of just following orders from someone who's been dead for years." Kakarot's tail curled around his waist, a defensive gesture Bulma had learned to recognize. "The dead cannot be disappointed, the living can." "Then live for the living, Kakarot, live for yourself." As if summoned by their conversation, an emergency news bulletin crackled to life on Master Roshi's radio. Reports of a new military organization called the Red Ribbon Army, led by a man named Commander Red who spoke of eliminating threats to world peace. Grainy footage showed advanced aircraft and what looked like mechanical soldiers. Kakarot's eyes sharpened as he listened, his warrior instincts engaging. "This Red Ribbon Army, they build artificial warriors." "Androids," Bulma corrected, her scientific mind already racing. "If the reports are accurate, they're creating artificial beings with combat capabilities that exceed human limits." "Then they will come for me," Kakarot stated with absolute certainty. "I am the strongest now. They will see me as a threat to their conquest." Master Roshi studied his troubled student, seeing an opportunity. "And what will you do when they come, boy?" For the first time since arriving at Kame House, Kakarot seemed genuinely uncertain. The question hung in the air like smoke from a dying fire, heavy with possibility. The child warrior who had once spoken only of dominance and conquest now faced a choice that would define not just his own path, but the fate of the world itself. In the distance, red lights moved across the horizon like searching eyes, drawing ever closer to the small island where a Saiyan child wrestled with the weight of his own potential. The Red Ribbon Army had found their target. The Red Ribbon Army's advanced scouts found nothing but smoking rubble where their primary target was supposed to be. Mount Paozu had become a crater, not from any weapon they understood, but from something far more primal. Satellite footage showed the impossible, a massive ape-like creature rampaging across the mountainside before vanishing with the dawn. In the aftermath, they'd found strange energy readings and rumors of a small boy with inhuman strength. Commander Red studied the reports from his mobile command center, his diminutive frame dwarfed by the advanced technology surrounding him. A child capable of this level of destruction, he mused, adjusting his military cap. Dr. Jiro, what do your calculations suggest? The elderly scientist's mechanical eye whirred as he processed the data. Based on the energy signatures, sir, this individual possesses power levels that exceed our current android prototypes by a significant margin. However, he paused, consulting his readings. The subject appears to be human, mostly. Mostly, Red's voice carried a dangerous edge. There are biological anomalies in the genetic samples we recovered. Enhanced muscle density, accelerated healing factors, and most peculiar of all traces of an extra appendage. Perhaps some form of mutation or, Jiro's expression grew thoughtful. Or perhaps something else entirely. Before Red could respond, alarms blared throughout the facility. A communications officer looked up from his station, face pale. Sir, we're receiving reports from the capital. There's been an attack. Someone called Tambourine has murdered multiple martial artists, including participants from the recent world tournament. Red's eyes narrowed. Tambourine, that's not one of ours. No, sir. Witnesses describe the attacker as non-human, green skin, demonic features, and sir, the officer swallowed hard. The attacks appear to be targeting anyone with significant fighting ability, including our target. Kakarot knelt beside Krillin's broken body, his small hands stained with his friend's blood. For the first time since Gohan's death, the Saiyan child felt something crack in the careful shell he'd built around his emotions. Krillin had been weak. By Saiyan standards, he'd been pathetic, a brief annoyance easily discarded. But he'd also been kind. He'd shared his food without being asked, laughed at things that weren't particularly funny, and never once looked at Kakarot with the fear that filled most people's eyes. And now he was dead. Kakarot! Master Roshi's voice was heavy with grief and something else, a deep, ancient fear. We need to leave. Now. The boy's head turned slowly, his dark eyes reflecting a cold fury that made even the turtle hermit step back. Who did this? A creature called Tambourine, Bulma whispered, her scientific mind struggling to process what she'd witnessed. It wasn't human, Kakarot, it was something else entirely. Kakarot stood, Krillin's blood still on his hands. When he spoke, his voice carried the same deadly calm that had once terrified bandits and wild beasts. Then I will find this Tambourine, and I will make it suffer before I kill it. Master Roshi saw the dangerous light in his student's eyes and knew they were approaching a crossroads. The boy had been slowly, painfully learning to temper his Saiyan instincts with something approaching humanity. But grief and rage could undo months of careful progress in an instant. Kakarot, listen to me, Roshi said firmly. Tambourine serves King Piccolo, the demon king himself. This is not just about revenge anymore if Piccolo has returned. Then the world is in danger, Kakarot finished, his tactical mind already processing the implications. He will gather the Dragon Balls, eliminate his enemies, and establish dominion. The child's expression grew thoughtful. A sound strategy. Sound strategy? Bulma gasped. Kakarot, you're talking about planetary conquest. Mass murder. For a moment, something almost like shame flickered across the boy's features. Yes, that is what I am talking about. He looked down at Krillin's body again. But this Piccolo killed someone under my protection. That makes it personal. The distinction mattered, Roshi realized. Kakarot wasn't planning to oppose Piccolo out of any sense of justice or heroism. He was planning to fight him because the Demon King had violated what the Saiyan child saw as his territory and his property. It wasn't noble, but it was a beginning. Then we worked together, Roshi said carefully. But Kakarot, if we're going to face King Piccolo, you need to understand something. This isn't like your tournament victories. Piccolo is ancient, cunning, and utterly without mercy. He won't be impressed by your strength or your Saiyan pride. He'll simply try to kill you. Kakarot's tail swished once behind him, a gesture Bulma had learned meant he was considering something dangerous. Then I'll have to kill him first. The confrontation with Tambourine came sooner than expected. Kakarot tracked the demon through the wilderness using methods Grandpa Gohan had never taught him, instincts that whispered of hunts beneath alien stars and prey that fought back with claws and fangs. When he finally cornered Tambourine in a rocky canyon, the creature was feeding on what remained of another martial artist. So, Tambourine hissed, green blood still dripping from his maw, the little monkey has come to play. The casual dismissal was a mistake. Kakarot's attack came not as the wild charge of an angry child, but as the calculated strike of a predator who had studied his prey's weaknesses. He'd observed Tambourine's fighting style during their first encounter, noted the creature's reliance on aerial superiority and energy-based attacks. This time, when Tambourine took to the air, Kakarot was ready. The Kamehameha wave that tore through the demon's wing wasn't the technique of Master Roshi's gentle teachings. It was something colder, more focused, powered by the kind of controlled fury that had once made Saiyan warriors the terror of 1,000 worlds. Tambourine crashed to the ground, his flight advantage gone, and found himself facing something that looked like a human child but fought like a force of nature. Every strike was precise, every counterattack anticipated. This wasn't the flailing desperation of their previous fight, this was systematic dismantlement. "Impossible!" Tambourine gasped as Kakarot's small fist connected with his solar plexus, lifting him clear off the ground. "You're just a human child." "No," Kakarot replied, his voice carrying an odd note of clarity, as if he were speaking a truth he'd only just realized himself. "I am something else entirely." The final blow shattered Tambourine's skull against the canyon wall, but as the creature lay dying, it managed one last, wheezing laugh. "Foolish, little monkey," it gasped. "You think you've won King Piccolo. Knows about you now, he'll come, personally, and when he does," Tambourine's eyes fixed on Kakarot with malicious glee, "he'll show you what real power looks like." Kakarot stared down at the corpse, feeling something shift inside his chest. Tambourine's death hadn't brought Krillin back. It hadn't filled the hollow space where his friend's laughter used to be. For the first time in his young life, the Saiyan child began to understand that some wounds couldn't be healed with violence. But King Piccolo was still out there. And whether it was justice, revenge, or simply the old Saiyan instinct to challenge the strongest available opponent, Kakarot knew their confrontation was inevitable. The question that haunted him as he flew back toward Kame House wasn't whether he could defeat the Demon King. It was whether he would still be recognizably himself when the battle was over. Behind him, unseen in the shadows of the canyon, red ribbon surveillance drones recorded everything. Commander Red watched the footage with growing unease, finally understanding what they were really dealing with. "Dr. Jiro," he said quietly, "I want you to accelerate the android project. Whatever that child is, he's about to face something even more dangerous. And if King Piccolo wins, then we'll need to be ready for whatever comes next," Jiro finished, his mechanical fingers already dancing across his control panels. In the distance, storm clouds were gathering, both literal and metaphorical. The true test of Kakarot's evolving nature was about to begin, and the fate of the world would hang in the balance. The battle with King Piccolo came to King Castle at midnight, under a blood-red moon that seemed to approve of the violence below. Kakarot had grown during his pursuit of the Demon King, not just in power, but in something approaching wisdom. Master Roshi's dying words still echoed in his mind. "Rise above what you were born to be, boy. Choose what you become." The old master had sacrificed himself in a failed Mafuba attempt, leaving Kakarot to face his greatest challenge alone. But when the final confrontation came, it wasn't the tactical battle the Saiyan child had planned. It was something far more primal. King Piccolo had underestimated him, a mistake the ancient demon wouldn't live to repeat. Kakarot's power had surged beyond even his own expectations, fueled not by Saiyan pride but by something more complex. The memory of Krillin's friendship, Gohan's kindness, even Roshi's stubborn faith in his potential for good. The Demon King died with Kakarot's fist through his chest, his last words a curse that spawned a final child, an egg that cracked open to reveal a small, green figure who looked at the Saiyan boy with curious eyes rather than inherited hatred. "You could kill me now," the young Piccolo observed, his voice carrying an intelligence that belied his apparent age. "I am your enemy's son, it would be logical." Kakarot stared at the creature who should have been his foe, seeing something unexpected in those dark eyes: potential. Not for conquest or destruction, but for growth, for choice. "Strength inherited is weakness disguised," he said finally, words that came from somewhere deeper than Saiyan doctrine. "Earn your power. Then we'll see if you're worthy of being my enemy." It was the first truly merciful decision Kakarot had ever made. He didn't know it would also be his last chance to make such choices freely. 5 years passed in relative peace. Kakarot trained, worked odd jobs with Bulma's company, and slowly learned what it meant to live rather than simply survive. He even married Kai, a decision that baffled him as much as anyone else, but which brought an unexpected stability to his life. Their son, Gohan, was born with his grandfather's gentleness and his father's potential, a combination that gave Kakarot hope for the future. Perhaps the cycle of Saiyan violence could be broken. Perhaps his bloodline could choose a different path. That hope died the day Radits arrived. The Saiyan warrior who landed on Earth bore a resemblance to Kakarot that was unmistakable: the same dark hair, the same predatory grace, even the same tail wrapped around his waist. But where Kakarot had learned to temper his nature, Radits remained everything a Saiyan was meant to be: proud, ruthless, and utterly without remorse. "So," Radits said, his scouter beeping as it analyzed his younger brother's power level, "the baby brother survived after all. Though I see you've gone native, Kakarot, living among these weaklings, raising a half-breed child." Kakarot's hands clenched into fists. The familiar rage was there, the old Saiyan fire that demanded he establish dominance, claim his place in the hierarchy through violence. But something else was there too: the memory of Gohan's bedtime stories, Kai's laughter, the simple joy of watching his son take his first steps. "My name," he said carefully, "is Goku now. Kakarot died on Mount Paozu years ago." Raditz laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Names are for the weak, brother. We are Saiyans, the warrior elite of the universe. Planet Vegeta may be gone, but its legacy lives on in us." His expression grew serious. "Prince Vegeta and Nappa are already en route to a planet rich in valuable resources. We could use a third warrior for the conquest. Join us and reclaim your birthright." The offer hung in the air like poison. Everything Kakarot had once believed, everything he'd been taught by his father's final message, it was all there in Raditz's words: purpose, power, a place in the cosmic order. "And if I refuse?" Kakarot asked, though he already knew the answer. "Then you're not my brother," Raditz replied coldly. "You're just another weakling standing in our way." The battle that followed would be remembered by the few witnesses as the moment everything changed. Not because of its violence, though Raditz proved to be a devastating opponent, but because of what it revealed about the man Kakarot had become. At first, the Saiyan child's old instincts took over. He fought like his brother expected. Efficiently, ruthlessly, without concern for collateral damage. Buildings crumbled, landscapes were reshaped, and for a terrifying moment it seemed as though the planet's newest protector might be reverting to his original programming. But then Raditz made a mistake. In his arrogance, he targeted not Kakarot directly, but the small house where Kai and Gohan waited in terror. The rage that followed wasn't the cold fury of a Saiyan warrior. It was something far more dangerous: the protective instinct of a father whose family was threatened. "You want to see what a Saiyan can really do?" Kakarot snarled, his power level spiking beyond anything Raditz's scouter could measure. "Let me show you what happens when one of us learns to fight for something other than conquest." The final exchange lasted only seconds. Kakarot's Kamehameha wave tore through Raditz's chest armor, leaving his brother broken and dying on the battlefield. But as Raditz lay gasping his last breaths, he managed one final act of spite. "You think you've won?" he wheezed, blood frothing at his lips. Prince Vegeta heard everything through the scouter. He knows about the Dragon Balls now. About this pathetic planet and its false protector. His eyes gleamed with malicious satisfaction. "He'll come, and when he does, you'll remember what it truly means to be Saiyan." Kakarot knelt beside his dying brother, feeling something he hadn't experienced since Grandpa Gohan's death. Genuine grief for family lost. "Why?" he asked quietly. "Why couldn't you choose differently?" Radits' laugh turned into a cough that sprayed more blood. "Because that's what we are, Kakarot, destroyers, conquerors. You can play house with these weaklings, but your blood knows the truth." His voice grew fainter. "When Vegeta comes, you'll have to choose your new life or your real nature." The Saiyan warrior died with those words on his lips, leaving Kakarot alone with a terrible certainty. His brother was right about one thing: Prince Vegeta would come. And when he did, everything Kakarot had built, his marriage, his family, his hard-won peace, would be tested in ways he couldn't yet imagine. As he held his brother's cooling body, Kakarot felt the weight of his dual nature more keenly than ever. He was a father now, a husband, a protector of Earth. But he was also Saiyan royalty, a prince in exile who had just killed his own brother in defense of aliens his bloodline was meant to conquer. In the distance, storm clouds gathered once again. But this time, the storm was coming from space, in the form of two Saiyan warriors who had never learned to choose mercy over might. The real test of everything Kakarot had become was still ahead, and deep in his heart, he feared that when it came, he might not like the choice he would have to make. Meanwhile, in the depths of space, Prince Vegeta's laughter echoed through his attack pod as he processed Radits' final transmission. The legendary Super Saiyan bloodline hiding on a backwater planet, protecting weaklings and raising half-breed children. "How far the mighty have fallen," Vegeta mused, his dark eyes gleaming with anticipation. "But no matter, Kakarot, when I arrive, I'll remind you exactly what it means to be a true Saiyan prince. And then, we'll see if your precious Earth is worth dying for." The journey to King Kai's planet should have been a pilgrimage of purification. Instead, it became something else entirely, a reckoning with the weight of choices that could never be undone. Kakarot's death at the hands of Piccolo's special beam cannon had been swift, but the guilt that followed him into the afterlife was eternal. In those final moments, as Radits' energy blast tore through both brothers, he had seen something in his elder sibling's eyes that would haunt him forever. Not hatred, but disappointment. The look of a warrior who had expected his brother to stand with him, only to be struck down by the very blood he'd come to reclaim. "So," King Kai observed as the deceased Saiyan completed his journey down Snake Way in record time, "you're the one who's been causing all the commotion. I sense great power in you, boy, but also great confusion." Kakarot knelt before the blue-skinned deity, his spirit form still carrying the battle scars from his final confrontation with Radits. "I killed my brother," he said without preamble, "my own blood for them." He gestured vaguely in Earth's direction. "Was I right to do so?" King Kai studied the young Saiyan with ancient eyes that had witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations. "That's not the question that's really troubling you, is it?" The silence stretched between them before Kakarot finally spoke again, his voice barely above a whisper. "When I fought him, in those final moments, part of me wanted to join him, to take his hand and become what I was born to be." His fists clenched. "The Saiyan in me, it felt right, natural, and yet you chose differently. I chose Earth, I chose my family. But was that choice mine or just another form of programming?" Kakarot's dark eyes met King Kai's. "How do I know the difference between who I am and who I've been shaped to become?" King Kai was quiet for a long moment, considering. This wasn't the typical student who came seeking power for noble purposes. This was something far more complex, a being caught between two natures, seeking not just strength but understanding. "Power without purpose is destruction," King Kai said finally. "But purpose without power is merely good intentions. You want to protect Earth, yes. Then you need to become strong enough to face what's coming." "And what's coming?" He shuddered slightly. "Prince Vegeta and Nappa aren't just Saiyan warriors, boy, they're Saiyan elite. They've conquered hundreds of worlds, destroyed entire civilizations without a second thought. They are what you could have become." "What I still might become," Kakarot corrected grimly. "Perhaps that's why your training here won't just be about increasing your power level. It's about learning to wield that power with intention rather than instinct." King Kai gestured toward the intense gravity field surrounding his small planet. Every step here will be a choice: endure or quit, grow or stagnate, protect or destroy. By the time you're ready to face Vegeta, you'll know exactly who you are. The training that followed pushed Kakarot beyond anything he'd experienced. Under 10 times Earth's gravity, every movement became a conscious act of will. But more challenging than the physical demands was the psychological weight of King Kai's teaching method. He didn't just show Kakarot new techniques, he forced him to examine the motivation behind every strike, every defense, every tactical decision. "Your Kamehameha wave," King Kai observed after watching Kakarot obliterate a mountain with the technique, "is powered by rage. Specifically, protective rage, the fury of someone defending what they love. It's powerful, but it's also limited. What happens when the threat isn't direct, when the choice isn't clear?" The answer came in the form of meditation exercises that pushed Kakarot to confront memories he'd tried to bury. Grandpa Gohan's death during his Uzaru transformation, Krillin's broken body, the moment he'd chosen to spare Piccolo Jr. rather than eliminate a potential threat. Each decision examined, each consequence weighed. "I keep making the same mistake," Kakarot realized during one particularly intense session. "I think I'm choosing mercy or justice, but I'm really just choosing what makes me feel less guilty about my nature." "And what is your nature?" King Kai asked. Kakarot was quiet for so long that Bubbles, King Kai's pet monkey, fell asleep waiting for an answer. Finally, he spoke. "I'm a weapon that learned to love the people it was meant to destroy. But that doesn't change what I am underneath." "No," King Kai agreed, "it doesn't, but it changes what you choose to do with that nature. A sword can cut down enemies or protect allies, the metal doesn't determine the wielding." The breakthrough came 6 months into his training during a sparring session where King Kai pushed Kakarot's power to its absolute limits. Exhausted, battered, and facing what seemed like inevitable defeat, the young Saiyan finally stopped fighting against his nature and started fighting with it. The Kaioken technique that emerged from that synthesis wasn't just a power multiplier, it was the physical manifestation of controlled Saiyan fury. All the rage, all the predatory instincts, all the warrior's pride, channeled and focused rather than suppressed or indulged. "There," King Kai said with satisfaction as Kakarot mastered the technique. "Now you're not fighting your Saiyan blood or your human connections, you're using both." But even as Kakarot's power grew, troubling news reached them from Earth. Vegeta and Nappa had arrived ahead of schedule and the planet's defenders were falling one by one. Piccolo, Tine, Chairatsu, Yamcha, each death a reminder of what failure would cost. "I have to go back," Kakarot said, his training incomplete but his resolve absolute. King Kai nodded grimly. "I know. But remember, boy, when you face Vegeta, you won't just be fighting another Saiyan. You'll be fighting everything you could have become if you'd made different choices. He's your shadow, in a very real sense. Defeat him and you'll finally know who you truly are." The journey back to Earth was shorter than the journey away, but infinitely more fraught. With each passing mile, Kakarot felt the pull of his home world growing stronger, not planet Vegeta, which existed now only in memory and legend, but Earth, with its blue skies and gentle people and the family waiting for his return. By the time he reached the battlefield, only Gohan, Krillin, and Vegeta remained standing. The Saiyan Prince stood over the broken forms of Earth's defenders like a conqueror surveying his latest victory, his armor barely scratched despite the obvious intensity of the battle. "So," Vegeta said without turning around, his enhanced senses detecting the approaching power level, "the lost prince finally returns home. Tell me, Kakarot, how does it feel to see your subjects lying broken before their rightful king?" Kakarot landed softly, his orange gi fluttering in the wind created by the battle's devastation. When he spoke, his voice carried a weight that hadn't been there before, not just power, but certainty. "They're not my subjects, Vegeta, they're my family, and you've made a very serious mistake in threatening them." Vegeta finally turned, and for the first time in years, the Saiyan Prince felt something approaching surprise. The warrior before him looked like the same low-class fool who had fled planet Vegeta as an infant. But there was something different in his eyes, not the wild fury of an untrained Saiyan, but the focused intensity of a true warrior who had found his purpose. "Family," Vegeta laughed, but there was an edge to it now. "You speak of weaklings and half-breeds as family, you truly have fallen far, Kakarot, but no matter, I'll remind you of your true heritage. I'll make you remember what it means to be Saiyan royalty." I already remember, Kakarot replied calmly, settling into a fighting stance that combined turtle school fundamentals with Saiyan instincts. The question is whether you can learn what it means to be something more. The battle for Earth's future and Kakarot's soul was about to begin. And this time, the outcome would determine not just who lived or died, but who Kakarot would choose to become when the fighting was finally over. In the distance, Gohan watched his father prepare to face his greatest challenge, not knowing that the real test wouldn't be defeating Vegeta. It would be doing so without losing himself to the very darkness he'd spent years learning to control. The Saiyan Prince and the Earth's protector circled each other under the alien sky, two paths of the same bloodline about to discover which vision of power would prove stronger. Conquest or protection, pride or love, the past or the future. The battle between Kakarot and Vegeta shattered more than just the landscape. It shattered any illusions either Saiyan had about their destiny. Vegeta had expected to face a corrupted weakling, someone who had forgotten his proud heritage. Instead, he found himself pushed to his absolute limits by a warrior who had somehow transformed Saiyan brutality into something more refined, more purposeful. When Kakarot unveiled the Kaioken technique, multiplying his power beyond anything Vegeta's scouter could measure, the prince experienced something he hadn't felt in decades. Genuine uncertainty. The fight ended not with Kakarot's victory but with mutual exhaustion and grudging respect. Vegeta, battered and humbled, retreated not in defeat but in contemplation. For the first time in his life, he had encountered a low-class warrior who fought not just with power but with conviction. "This isn't over, Kakarot," Vegeta had growled as his space pod prepared for departure. "You may have found strength in your attachments, but I'll show you that true Saiyan power comes from within. When next we meet, I'll have surpassed you completely." Kakarot had let him go, a decision that would prove both wise and catastrophic in ways he couldn't yet imagine. 3 years later, Dr. Jiro's underground laboratory hummed with malevolent purpose. The elderly scientist studied the data streams flowing across his monitors, each readout confirming his worst fears and greatest opportunities. "Project Android has been a complete success," he murmured to his reflection in the polished steel of Android 19's dormant form. But the target parameters have changed dramatically. The Red Ribbon Army was gone, destroyed by that same monkey-tailed child who had once been their primary objective. But Jiro's obsession had only grown stronger. He'd watched from the shadows as Kakarot, now calling himself Goku, had faced down the Saiyan Prince. He'd recorded every energy signature, analyzed every technique, cataloged every weakness. "You believe yourself Earth's protector," Jiro whispered, his fingers dancing across the control panels. "But you're still a Saiyan conqueror at heart, and when my androids are finished with you, the world will see exactly what kind of monster they've been harboring." The viral heart condition had been a stroke of genius, a slow-acting bioweapon designed specifically for Saiyan physiology. By the time Goku's immune system recognized the threat, it would be too late. Earth's greatest defender would be reduced to a shadow of his former self, leaving the planet defenseless against Jiro's mechanical children. But the doctor had made one crucial miscalculation. He had built his androids to face the Saiyan warrior called Kakarot, not the protector who had chosen to become Son Goku. The heart virus struck during what should have been a routine training session. Goku collapsed mid-flight, his power level plummeting as the alien pathogen attacked his cardiovascular system with surgical precision. Kaikai's panicked calls brought Dr. Brief and his medical team, but even Capsule Corp's advanced technology could only slow the disease's progress. "It's unlike anything in our databases," Dr. Brief explained to the gathered defenders. "The virus appears to be artificially engineered, designed to attack specific genetic markers found only in—" He paused, uncomfortable with the implications. "Saiyans," Vegeta finished coldly. The prince had arrived on Earth 3 days prior, drawn by energy signatures that suggested a new threat was approaching. Finding his rival bedridden and weakening had sparked an emotion he was reluctant to name. "Someone has been studying us, Kakarot, studying our biology, our fighting techniques, our weaknesses." Goku struggled to sit up in his bed, sweat beading on his forehead from the effort. "Dr. Jiro," he said quietly, "has to be. The Red Ribbon Army had files on me from when I was a child." "Then he'll pay for this treachery," Vegeta snarled, his aura flaring with barely contained rage. No one strikes at Saiyan royalty through such cowardly means. But even as Vegeta spoke of revenge, alarms began sounding throughout West City. On the horizon, three figures approached, two humanoid forms flanking something that defied easy categorization. Android 19 and 20 moved with mechanical precision, but it was the creature between them that drew the eye. A biomechanical fusion of insect and nightmare, its form shifting and adapting with each passing moment. "Impossible," Dr. Brief whispered, his instruments detecting energy signatures that shouldn't exist. "That third entity, it's absorbing ambient energy from the environment, growing stronger by the second." Cell, though he had yet to reveal his name, studied the city below with compound eyes that reflected predatory intelligence. Dr. Jiro's greatest creation had awakened ahead of schedule, drawn by the same viral signature that was weakening his primary target. The bioandroid had consumed the doctor's notes on Project Saiyan, understanding immediately what his creator had failed to grasp. Goku wasn't just a warrior to be defeated, he was genetic material to be harvested. "Androids 19 and 20, Cell spoke, his voice carrying harmonics that made windows crack throughout the city, begin the elimination protocol. Focus on the secondary targets first. I want the Saiyan specimens isolated and weakened before absorption." Vegeta launched himself skyward without hesitation, his pride demanding he face this new threat despite Goku's condition. "Stay here and recover, Kakarot," he called back. "These mechanical puppets are beneath a true Saiyan prince." The battle that followed showcased everything Vegeta had learned during his time in space. His power had indeed grown exponentially, just as he'd promised. Android 19 fell within minutes, its energy absorption systems overloaded by the sheer intensity of Vegeta's attacks. Android 20, revealed to be Dr. Jiro himself in cybernetic form, lasted longer but ultimately succumbed to the prince's ruthless efficiency. But Cell was different. Where the other androids had been programmed with combat algorithms, Cell possessed something approaching instinct. He fought like a living being, adapting to Vegeta's techniques in real time, countering each strategy almost before it was fully implemented. "Fascinating," Cell mused as he caught one of Vegeta's punches barehanded, his biomechanical form already beginning to mimic the prince's fighting stance. "You possess significant power, but you fight like a warrior seeking to prove his worth rather than one fighting to protect something precious." Predictable, it was then that Goku arrived, not at full strength, but carried by desperation and the same protective instinct that had driven him to face Radits years before. The sight of Vegeta being systematically dismantled by this biomechanical horror triggered something deep in the Saiyan's genetic memory. The transformation began not as the explosive rage that traditionally birthed a Super Saiyan, but as something cooler, more focused. Every lesson learned on King Kai's planet, every moment of growth and choice, crystallized into a single point of absolute clarity. Goku's hair flickered golden as his power level soared beyond anything he'd previously achieved. But this wasn't the legendary Super Saiyan of myth and fury. This was something new, tempered by years of choosing protection over conquest, love over pride. "Cell," Goku said as he gently helped Vegeta to his feet, his voice carrying none of the arrogance typically associated with such transformations. "I don't know what you are or what you want, but this ends now." The bioandroid studied this new development with scientific fascination. Extraordinary, the Saiyan transformation, but achieved through protective instinct rather than rage. "You may prove more valuable than my creator anticipated." Cell's mistake was assuming that value meant he could afford to toy with his prey. When Goku's Kamehameha wave tore through the bioandroid's chest, disintegrating his core before the absorption protocols could activate, Cell experienced something his programming hadn't prepared him for. Genuine surprise. "Impossible," he gasped as his biomechanical form began to collapse. "My design, perfect, evolution, perfection isn't about power," Goku replied quietly, his golden aura fading as the immediate threat passed. "It's about choice, and you chose to threaten my home." As Cell's remains crumbled to dust, Vegeta stared at his rival with something approaching awe. That transformation, it was Super Saiyan but different, more controlled. "How?" Goku helped the prince to his feet, his expression thoughtful. I stopped fighting against what I am, Vegeta, stopped trying to be either fully Saiyan or fully human. I just chose to be myself. It was a lesson that would resonate with both warriors in the years to come as they faced threats that would test not just their power, but their understanding of what it truly meant to protect the things they loved. But for now, Earth was safe. And in the ruins of Dr. Jiro's laboratory, a small computer terminal continued to broadcast a signal into deep space, a message that would eventually reach ears capable of recognizing its significance. The real test of Goku's evolved nature was still approaching, carried on divine winds that would reshape his understanding of power, purpose, and the price of protection. In the distance, unknown to the celebrating defenders, a purple cat-like being stretched lazily on a distant planet, his attention caught by reports of a Saiyan who fights like a god of protection rather than destruction. Lord Beerus was beginning to take an interest in Earth. The god of destruction arrived on Earth not with the catastrophic fanfare one might expect, but with the casual indifference of a cosmic force investigating a minor curiosity. Lord Beerus materialized above West City during the afternoon, his purple form floating serenely as he observed the bustling metropolis below. Beside him, Wise consulted his staff with the practiced ease of an angel who had witnessed countless civilizations rise and fall. "So this is the planet with the protective Saiyan," Beerus mused, his cat-like eyes scanning for energy signatures. "I must admit, Wise, the reports from the Galactic Patrol were intriguing. A Saiyan who achieved Super Saiyan transformation through defense rather than rage, such a being could prove useful." "Indeed, Lord Beerus," Wise replied, his voice carrying its usual note of polite detachment. "Though I wonder if this Goku truly understands the implications of what he's become. Power without purpose is destruction, but purpose without understanding can be equally dangerous." Their conversation was interrupted by the rapid approach of two energy signatures, Goku and Vegeta, both having sensed the overwhelming presence that had suddenly appeared in Earth's vicinity. When Goku materialized before the god of destruction, his first instinct wasn't to attack or flee, but to study. Years of protecting Earth had taught him to assess threats carefully, and what he sensed from this purple cat being defied all conventional understanding. "You're not from around here," Goku observed, his tone conversational despite the tension crackling through the air. "That power, it's like nothing I've ever felt, divine but with an edge of something else." Beerus tilted his head, genuinely surprised by the lack of fear in the Saiyan's voice. "Most beings either grovel or attack when they encounter a god of destruction. You seem to be doing neither." "Should I be?" Goku asked seriously. "Because I'm getting the feeling that if you wanted to destroy Earth, you'd have done it already. So either you're here for something specific, or I'm evaluating whether this world deserves to continue existing." Beerus finished with a lazy smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Tell me, Saiyan, what makes you think your little planet is worth preserving?" It was Vegeta who answered, his pride finally overcoming his tactical caution. "This world is under Saiyan protection, Cat. If you have business here, you'll address Prince Vegeta of..." The backhand that sent Vegeta crashing through 3 mountains happened so casually that it took several seconds for Goku to process what had occurred. One moment the prince was posturing. The next, he was a rapidly disappearing speck on the horizon. "As I was saying," Beerus continued as if nothing had happened, "what makes this world worth preserving? I've heard interesting reports about your fighting style, Goku. They say you've achieved a form of Super Saiyan that comes not from rage but from protective instinct. Fascinating." Goku's aura flickered golden for just a moment, not in preparation for attack, but as an unconscious response to the casual dismissal of his rival. "Vegeta's prideful, but he's not wrong about one thing. This world is under protection. Mine." "Ah, there it is," Beerus said with evident pleasure. "The famous protective instinct. But tell me, Saiyan Guardian, what happens when the protector becomes the threat, when your very nature conflicts with your noble intentions?" The question struck deeper than any physical blow could have. In the years since his battle with Cell, Goku had wrestled with that exact dilemma. His Saiyan blood still whispered of conquest and dominance, even as his human connections demanded mercy and restraint. I guess, Goku said slowly, I'd have to trust the people I'm protecting to stop me if I went too far. That's what family does, right? They keep each other honest. Beerus studied the Saiyan with growing interest. Family. An interesting concept for a warrior race. But what if that family asked you to do something that contradicted your nature? What if protecting them required becoming the very thing you've spent years trying not to be? Before Goku could answer, Wise's staff chimed with an urgent alert. The angel's expression shifted from mild interest to genuine concern as he processed the incoming data. Lord Beerus, Wise said carefully, we have a situation. The Supreme Kai of Universe 10 is requesting immediate assistance. It appears one of their apprentices has developed concerning ideas about divine justice. Zamasu, Beerus growled, his playful demeanor evaporating instantly. I warned Gawasu about that one's obsession with mortal elimination. What has the fool done now? The answer came in the form of a temporal rift that tore open above their heads, disgorging a figure that bore Goku's face but radiated malevolence that made the very air recoil. This was Goku Black, but not the body-swapping entity of legend. This was something far worse. Zamasu, empowered by stolen divine Kai and wearing the face of the very protector whose methods he sought to pervert. Lord Beerus, the false Goku spoke, his voice carrying Zamasu's righteous fury. How fitting that I find you here, consorting with the mortal filth you should be eliminating. Your negligence ends today. Zamasu, Beerus snarled, his destroyer energy beginning to leak into the surrounding atmosphere, you dare steal divine power for your pathetic crusade. I should have erased you when you first spoke of divine justice. But it was Goku who stepped between them, his expression grim with understanding. This is about me, isn't it? About what I represent? The false Goku smiled with cold satisfaction. Perceptive as always, you see, Son Goku, your very existence is an affront to divine order. A Saiyan who fights to protect rather than destroy, who finds strength in mortal attachments rather than divine purpose. You're a corruption of everything warrior races are meant to be. And you think wearing my face gives you the right to correct that? Goku's aura began to shift, taking on qualities that even Beerus found remarkable, not just power, but an almost divine focus on protection. I think, Zamasu replied, his own aura darkening with stolen destroyer energy, that I am what you could have become if you had embraced your true calling instead of playing house with mortals. The battle that followed was unlike anything Earth had witnessed. Where Goku fought with the controlled fury of a protector defending his home, Zamasu wielded power with the absolute conviction of a zealot convinced of his own righteousness. Each clash of their energies rewrote local physics, forcing Wise to maintain protective barriers to prevent reality itself from unraveling. But as the fight progressed, something began to change in Goku's fighting style. The movements became more fluid, more instinctive. His conscious mind stepped back, allowing something deeper to take control, not the Saiyan instinct for battle, but something that transcended species entirely. Ultra Instinct manifested not as the serene detachment of traditional martial arts, but as the perfect synthesis of protection and power. Every dodge protected not just Goku, but the planet beneath them. Every counterattack served to minimize collateral damage while maximizing effectiveness against the threat. Impossible, Zamasu gasped as his most devastating attacks passed harmlessly through spaces Goku no longer occupied. This technique, it's divine but tainted by mortal sentiment. It's not tainted, Goku replied, his voice carrying an odd echo as Ultra Instinct reached its full manifestation. It's complete. Divine power guided by mortal purpose, protection without the arrogance of absolute judgment. The final blow came not as a devastating attack, but as a perfect defensive counter that turned Zamasu's own divine energy against him. The false god's form began to unravel, his stolen power returning to its rightful place in the cosmic order. You think you've won, Zamasu wheezed as his essence began to dissipate. But you've only proven my point. A mortal who achieves divine power, it's an abomination that will inspire others to reach beyond their station. You've doomed your entire species with your success. As Zamasu faded from existence, Goku's Ultra Instinct form flickered and died, leaving him exhausted but oddly at peace. For the first time in years, the conflict between his Saiyan nature and his protective instincts had been fully resolved. Remarkable, Beerus observed, his earlier interest now replaced by something approaching respect. Ultra instinct achieved not through perfect emptiness but through perfect purpose. You found something even angels struggle to master, divine power tempered by genuine compassion. Does that mean Earth is safe? Goku asked, swaying slightly from exhaustion. Beerus considered the question for a long moment, his cosmic perspective weighing possibilities that mortal minds couldn't fully grasp. For now, he said finally. But Zamasu wasn't wrong about one thing: your existence will inspire others to seek power beyond their natural limits. The question is whether they'll follow your path of protection or find their own. As the god of destruction and his angel departed, leaving Goku alone in the aftermath of divine combat, the Saiyan protector couldn't shake the feeling that his greatest challenges still lay ahead. In the distance, reality continued to vibrate with the echoes of their battle, ripples that would eventually reach the attention of beings far more dangerous than even gods of destruction. The Tournament of Power was still years away, but the cosmic forces that would orchestrate it had already begun to take notice of Universe 7's most unusual defender. Meanwhile, Vegeta finally extracted himself from the mountain range where Beerus had deposited him, his pride wounded but his determination stronger than ever. If Kakarot could achieve Ultra Instinct through his protective instincts, then perhaps there was a path for the prince as well, one that didn't require abandoning his Saiyan pride, but transforming it into something worthy of respect rather than fear. The next phase of their evolution was about to begin. The Omni-King's palace existed beyond conventional space and time, a realm where the whims of a childlike deity could reshape entire multiverses with a giggle. When Zeno announced the Tournament of Power, his innocent excitement masked the cosmic terror that followed. 8 universes would be erased from existence, their quadrillions of inhabitants reduced to nothing more than forgotten dreams. But Goku, the Saiyan who had once spoken of conquest and now fought only to protect, had a different idea. "Zeno-chan," he said, his casual tone making the Grand Priest's eye twitch with barely contained horror, "I've got a proposal about this tournament." The Omni-King clapped his tiny hands together with delight. "Oh, Goku has an idea, tell me, tell me. Instead of erasing the losing universes, what if we made them stronger? Like..." Goku scratched his head, searching for words that could convey cosmic concepts to a being who viewed existence as entertainment. "Like a really intense training camp. The universes that struggle get help from the ones that don't, and everyone gets better together." Grand Priest's composure cracked slightly. "Son Goku, you cannot possibly be suggesting we alter the Omni-King's divine judgment based on some mortal notion of..." "I like it," Zeno interrupted, bouncing in his throne. "Instead of making things disappear, we make them better." But his expression grew thoughtful in the way that had historically preceded cosmic catastrophes. "How do we make sure everyone tries their hardest if there's no punishment for losing?" Goku's answer came not from his Saiyan warrior instincts, but from years of watching his son grow, of training students who needed motivation beyond fear. "We make the prize something everyone really wants. Like, the winner gets to create something new instead of just avoiding destruction. A new universe, maybe, or bring back people who have been lost." The concept was so fundamentally different from the Omni-King's usual entertainment that it sparked genuine curiosity in the cosmic child's mind. "Creating instead of destroying. Interesting? Yes, let's try that. The winning universe gets to wish back one erased universe of their choice." It was a compromise that still carried terrible stakes. 7 universes would remain in limbo, but it offered something no Tournament of Power had ever provided. Hope. Universe 7's preparation took an unusual turn. Instead of simply gathering their strongest fighters, Goku found himself assembling a team that reflected the complex journey of his own moral evolution. Frieza's inclusion raised the most eyebrows. The former Emperor of Evil sat in his cell, golden form gleaming with barely contained malevolence, as Goku explained the situation. "You want me to fight? To save Universe 7? Frieza's laugh was like breaking crystal. "How deliciously ironic. The monkey who destroyed my empire now begs for my aid." "I'm not begging," Goku replied calmly. "I'm offering you a chance to prove that power doesn't have to mean destruction. Plus," his expression grew thoughtful, "you're incredibly strong and you understand strategy in ways I never will. We need that, and what assurance do I have that you won't simply eliminate me once the tournament ends?" Goku was quiet for a long moment, considering. None, I guess, but I'm trusting you to make the right choice when it matters. Same way I trusted Vegeta, same way I trusted Piccolo. It was that trust, unearned and inexplicable, that proved more persuasive than any threat or bribe could have been. Frieza agreed, though his motivations remained as opaque as ever. The final team reflected the full spectrum of Goku's influence on Universe 7. Vegeta, still proud but tempered by years of protecting his family. Piccolo, the demon who had chosen to become Earth's guardian. Tine, representing the disciplined warrior's path, and others whose lives had been touched by the Saiyan's unique brand of redemptive combat. But it was the inclusion of his son Gohan that carried the deepest significance. "Dad," Gohan said as they prepared to enter the tournament arena, "I know you see this as another chance to help people grow stronger. But what if the other universes don't want to be saved? What if they'd rather die as they are than change who they are?" Goku considered the question with the gravity it deserved. "Then I guess we'll have to show them that change doesn't mean losing yourself. It means becoming the best version of who you already are." The Tournament of Power began with the same explosive violence that had characterized its predecessor timelines, but the altered stakes created a fundamentally different dynamic. Instead of fighting purely for survival, each universe's team carried the weight of cosmic responsibility. They weren't just protecting their own existence, but determining which lost universe would be restored. Universe 11's Jiren remained the tournament's most formidable opponent, but their encounter with Goku carried new significance. Where the Pride Trooper had once fought from a philosophy of solitary strength, he now faced an opponent whose power had grown from connections rather than isolation. "Your strength puzzles me," Jiren admitted during their climactic battle, his gray form radiating power that warped spacetime around them. "You speak of fighting for others, yet your technique suggests complete self-reliance. How do you reconcile this contradiction?" Goku's ultra instinct flared to life, but this time it carried echoes of everyone he'd ever protected. Kaikai's determination, Gohan's compassion, Vegeta's pride transformed into nobility, even Frieza's strategic brilliance. "It's not self-reliance," he said, his voice carrying harmonics from a dozen different influences. "It's synthesis. I am who I am because of everyone I've fought beside, everyone I've protected, everyone who's trusted me to be better than what I was born to be." The final exchange between them wasn't just a clash of power levels, but a collision between two philosophies of strength. Jiren's absolute individual power met Goku's communal synthesis, and in that moment, the Pride Trooper experienced something he'd never known, the feeling of being part of something larger than himself. When Universe 7 claimed victory, it wasn't through dominance but through the kind of coordinated teamwork that Goku had spent years learning to value. Frieza's tactical genius, Vegeta's unwavering resolve, Piccolo's protective instincts, and Goku's synthesized strength combined into something greater than the sum of their individual powers. "Xeno-chan," Goku said as he stood before the Omni-King in the aftermath of victory, "I know what universe I want to restore." "Ooh, which one?" The cosmic child leaned forward eagerly. "All of them," Goku replied simply. "I wish for all the erased universes to be restored and for each one to be paired with a surviving universe as training partners. Let everyone grow stronger together." The audacity of the request, using the prize to circumvent the punishment entirely, struck the assembled gods speechless. But Zeno clapped his hands with delight, charmed by the elegance of the solution. "Yes, that's even better than what I planned. Everyone gets to keep existing and they get new friends to play with." As reality rewrote itself to accommodate the Omni-King's new decree, Goku felt a weight he'd carried for decades finally lift from his shoulders. The choice between his Saiyan nature and his protective instincts had been resolved not through victory over one or the other, but through their complete integration. In the aftermath of the tournament, as the various universes began their new partnerships and Earth settled into its role as Universe 7's moral center, Goku made one final decision that surprised everyone who knew him. "I'm retiring the name Kakarot," he announced to his assembled friends and rivals. "Not because I'm ashamed of it, but because I've earned the right to choose who I want to be." Vegeta, his own pride transformed but not diminished by their shared experiences, nodded with something approaching reverence. "And who have you chosen to be, Kakarot?" "Son Goku," the Saiyan replied, his voice carrying the weight of every battle fought, every choice made, every person protected along his unlikely journey from conqueror to guardian. Husband, father, protector, and friend, the rest is just details. It was an ending that was also a beginning, not just for Goku, but for the entire cosmic order he'd helped reshape through the simple revolutionary act of choosing compassion over conquest, growth over dominance, synthesis over supremacy. In the distance, new challenges awaited. The multiverse was vast and full of threats that would test Universe 7's newfound philosophy. But for the first time in his life, the Saiyan who had once been programmed for planetary conquest faced the future not with the cold calculation of a warrior, but with the warm confidence of someone who had finally learned the difference between strength and power. The true Dragon Ball saga, the story of how a weapon learned to love, how a conqueror became a protector, and how a lost child finally found his way home, had reached its conclusion. What came next would be written not in the shadow of ancient programming, but in the bright light of conscious choice. Son Goku, Earth's greatest defender, stood ready for whatever tomorrow might bring. The end. There it is, Kakarot's complete evolution from weapon to protector through conscious choice, not memory loss. From terrifying child warlord to the defender who revolutionized the tournament of power itself. What was your favorite moment? Young Kakarot's negotiations, the Radits' psychological warfare, that insane protective ultra instinct. Drop your thoughts below, hit subscribe for more broken Dragon Ball concepts. Want What If Vegeta arrived first? Let me know. Thanks for this incredible journey, legends. Peace out.